Hello, everybody. I am Jill Zimaborski. I am a Florida Keys journalist. And with me today, I have the City of Key West, Alison Higgins. She is its sustainability coordinator. And I want to, as a basis, say that Key West has a population of about 23,000, according to the last census. And it is celebrating a special moment. Allison, start by telling us how old Key West is.
We turned 200 this past weekend. So we had a great bicentennial. My favorite thing that they did is they did a time capsule, and they had four I guess student ambassadors. They were all 10, 12 years old, and their job is to be there in 50 years when they open it back up and to tell the story of what we did that day.
Isn't that
which I hadn't
great?
heard of doing that before. I thought that was really neat.
Everyone knows that St. Augustine is one of our oldest cities in Florida, but I'm not sure they recognize Key West as that. So that's pretty special. All right, so I am going to ask you to tell me about what Key West is doing to adapt to sea level rise. So give us a basis. What do you do?
Absolutely. So one of the key things I always lead with is the fact that this isn't something new. I actually have a postcard, a picture of a postcard from 1917 showing water right in the middle of the downtown commercial area. What we didn't know then was that you can't just raise and cover it once, that it keeps coming. We have the dubious distinction of having the longest running tidal gauge in the Western Hemisphere. It's been running since the 1840s, and it shows, sure enough, that there's an incline in the amount of the sea's level. And what's really interesting is every year I have a presentation that I give to, we've got an ambassador class where we teach them all about how the city functions, and they're there to then help represent us to the rest of the populace. Every year when I update the slides for that presentation, the rate of which that has been noted, it's not the projection, it's the actual rate that has been noticed, has changed and has grown. Oh. So it's teeny, it's in the millimeters because we're talking about on a 1 year scale, but it's there. So we've lost about 2 inches since I graduated high school.
Oh no. So that is wonderful that you have that trend, that you have the data, which many cities probably just simply don't have.
And it's only because we're so low, right? So yes. We've got our, we're very lucky in being an old city. We've got that data. And and we've been managing for these low areas for forever. So it was really interesting. A handful of years back, maybe 5, 6 total, Miami Beach put in these duckbill valves into their storm drain system. And what that does is because the storm drains flood into the ocean, when the ocean levels come up, it comes up into the street. So we have about 11 intersections that go underwater at king tides. They were putting in these duckbills, and they were getting all these accolades for it. I said, we did that already. And I went and looked. We did it in 1997. Oh, wow. And we actually got written up as a FEMA case study for really, really smart things. Now, granted, those things are more than 20 years old, and it's time for us to replace them. But most of them are still functioning, and that's why we only have 11 areas that go under. So we have a long history, but now what's changed in the past handful of years is we recognize that we can't just cover up the water we see now. We have to plan for a higher amount. And it's one thing when you're working on a road that you revisit roads every 15 to 20 years, right? So if it's not wet now, don't worry about it. Don't waste your money there. But if you're doing something, a building per se, they've got 40 to 50 to 60 year lifespans. And if you're doing major infrastructure, almost anything with concrete. So if you're looking at your water mains, you're looking at your sewer mains, you're looking at your pump stations. Those are like 70 to 100 years. Like these are major resources that you don't want to have to change halfway through. So we have been working on, we actually just came up with a draft planning language for our entire stormwater system.
Okay.
And we use that, and the 4 counties of the compact, it's the Southeast Florida Regional Climate Compact, came up with the projections that's very specific to South Florida. And so we use those planning horizons as well and think about, okay, so just the other day, we went out and one of the projects in our capital improvement plan to start the design on this year was for a seawall at Garrison Bight Marina near Charter Boat Row. And I said, hey, have you guys thought about the sea level rise part? And they're like, nope. So we, grabbed a bunch of people and went for a walk around. And the good thing is they're pretty high right now. They do have to redo the whole seawall. The biggest thing that what we're working on there, so they don't expect issues between now and the next time they'll have to do a major, but they are going to move the walls in some sections so they're more easy to get to. Okay. So in this particular example, here's the seawall, and they built a dock out and over the top of it. Well, you can't raise that.
Yes. So
the new design is going to bring that out here. And then when it comes time, you now have that available. It's even that like planning to adapt.
Right.
Another really good example of that, where we can be smarter with our money by thinking in the long term. So Jose Marti is this tiny little road that's next to one of our parks and a school and a police station. And there's a body of water that almost comes to the top of that seawall on king tides. And if that came up and over there, that entire area would be in danger. If it's at that level right now, and we went and said, okay, seawalls are at least a 40 to 50 year investment because they're big concrete structures, that means we should build it to here.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to lose the view. It's going to be this giant thing. What we can do instead is build it a third as high, half as high, but make sure that it is the width it needs to be to add that top later.
Interesting. So that's very adaptable in your plan.
Yeah. So you don't have to, so you're not going to hear right now, but you're ready for it when it's time.
Talk about some of the costs involved in those couple of projects, or in your projects as a whole.
So it depends. It obviously adds some, but it also, when you're talking about a long term, if you're talking about the 50 years on something, it is the smarter thing. There's still a lot of thought to be done on road elevation.
Yeah.
Because nobody can afford to raise every road. Mm-hmm. So that the county has a ton, and it also has the fact that some roads are super low and super long and have 5 people on them.
Right.
Whereas at least everything we have is super dense, but we're dense and we have tiny roads. When you raise a road, you just place that water. You're not allowed to let that water go on the private property next to you. So you need as much space as possible to plan for that. We don't have the space.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that the county is seeing in some of its projects, where it actually has more space than we do. One of the things, and I haven't done all the math myself, but when you think about what you replace most often, you replace your car far more often. So if there's a stage where we start getting more into amphibious vehicles that can take the saltwater, I can easily buy everybody on that block, when it comes time for them to buy a new car, can afford that more than the city should tax somebody to raise that road, because they can't keep raising it forever. and in some cases just can't raise it in that area. So, if you were actually talking about long-term living, we should be sinking that money into something different than roads.
That's fascinating. Is anybody working on amphibious vehicles
Yes.
as an affordable option?
The tough thing is, for a handful of years now, actually even back to my days at Glee, which was more than just about 10 years ago, I've always wanted to, on the weekend following the powerboat races, have an amphibious car race, and let people see these things doing what they do and get used to the idea that they exist in different shapes and forms and fashions. The toughest thing is most of the ones that are built, there's a handful of commercial varieties, and there's a handful of ones that were made and are still existing out there today. They tend to be more for lakes and rivers than they are for the ocean. So salt water is dangerous for those sorts of things.
And just mention what GLEE stands for, because of course that was a great organization that got the Keys thinking about the environment.
So it's Green Living and Energy Education. It started as an event, which was started by this great couple in the Upper Keys that were trying to build a green home, and found that they had to educate every single person at the city that they could in order to get these things through. These were all very foreign concepts. They were very difficult to help move forward what they want to do. So they had to actually learn the very technical building language themselves in order to then teach. And they said, this shouldn't be this hard for everybody. Let's do an event that makes that happen. And they reached out to our extension service, and we pulled off the very first event. I was a grad student at the time.
Wow.
And they finished that, and they said, that was great. Let's become an organization. Let's keep doing this.
And as I recall, they wanted to live, quote, off the grid, right? So they have their own water containment system that had a cistern beneath their house. They wanted to be free from hooking up to the power company. And they ended up succeeding, but it, like you said, it wasn't easy. And people were not aware of how this could be done way back when.
So, fast forward 10 years, and here at the city, one of the very first things I did, so we have a ROGO system, much like the rest of the cities. Ours is the only one that has prerequisites before you get to the points-based. And one of those is you have to build to basic green certification. You have to put in a cistern, and you have to build 1.5 feet above the base flood elevation.
Okay.
Those are the three prerequisites, and then you compete for points. Okay. So that's made a huge difference. That's been in place for, I believe, 8 or 9 years now. So it's made a big difference.
You have a sustainability committee, I think, comprised of citizens. What's their role in this whole process?
They're fantastic. So they their biggest role was pushing for me. So each commissioner assigns one person of their choosing to the board, and then that board is the advisory committee to our work. And there was a climate action plan that called for my position, but the city wasn't willing or able at that moment, and so they were very vocal. They took on that issue, and so I'm almost been 10 years now with the city. They took on the getting a bike ped person back on staff. They took on the solid waste contract, which made a big difference about that same time, about 8 to 10 years ago. So they do general day-to-day guide, or monthly. We have a monthly meeting. They give guidance then, and they help pass their guidance. Their recommendations go to the city commission.
And tell me this, the amount of time and effort Key West is committing to seawalls makes me think of a little bit of the Netherlands and how they have managed to control water somewhat from overtaking their beautiful country. Is there any other country out there or any source of information that you rely on greatly?
Um, kind of. So the tough thing is we are much more like Venice than we are like the Netherlands because we can't keep the water out with our porous limestone rock. It doesn't matter what you do with that wall, it's still going to percolate up sooner or later. So, and you can't just seal off, the whole thing, because that's how, stormwater happens, and then you have a whole different problem because nothing can seep in when it's dry. So we I am a sponge anywhere and everywhere. One of the great things the city did a strategic planning effort about a year to two ago, and the number two issue for our constituents, for our people, the residents that live here, was adaptation.
Yeah.
Number one was affordable housing. So because of that, there was a lot more emphasis and dollars put in that direction. So we got a grant for an adaptation plan,
Okay.
and that will be kicking off somewhere in the next 6 months, and it's gonna take a couple of years. It will be the most comprehensive and detailed adaptation plan is out there that I've seen. And that's because we're going to take it on chapter by chapter. So one chapter is just about our roads and our buildings. The next chapter is about housing. The next chapter is about our environment and our coastline. The next chapter is about health and social recovery issues. The next one is about our historic and cultural preservation. The next one is about our land use standards. Like, when you build back, are you going to build it the exact same way that you did before that flooded? So each of these will have a data gathering session, a public meeting session, come up with more ideas and dollar figures, and then in the end, when that chapter is done, there will be a 10-year budget that says this is what you do next, so that I can start planning for grants.
Yeah.
And being the smartest with the money that we can.
Sure. Well, that's exciting that you all are looking forward. And of course, with 200 years behind you, we want Key West to exist 200 more years at least. Is there anything else you'd like to add? And I want to thank you so much for your time today.
Absolutely. The only thing I would say is if people want to follow the adaptation planning process, if you go on the city's website, so just Google City of Key West, and there'll be an icon there called Key West Connect, and that is our information stream. And what's great about it is when you click in there, there's like 50 things you can learn about, but you just click the ones you're interested in. You can tell them whether you want it via email or via text or both, and then when it happens, you will know.
You will be notified and you can get involved. That's fabulous. Well, I want to thank you, Alison Higgins, Sustainability Coordinator for the City of Key West, and perhaps we'll talk again soon.
I would love that. Thank you, Ms.
you.
Jill.